Want to be sure that you don't miss a single video or blog post? Hit the bell icon on the channel page and hit save to enable your notifications. Be sure to select the notification setting that fits you best. Are you not a fan or don't want to receive notifications? Just jump straight to your subscriptions page to view the latest videos from your favorite creators and channels. You can learn more about how to support your favorite creators and bloggers here. We'll also provide a link in the description below. Thank you for joining me for this third video in our Building a Debt-Free Home video series. We're talking right now about finances. If you haven't already watched the first couple of videos, we'll link to those over here. Give them a watch. We talk about what's keeping us from building a home, and then we jumped deep into the finances topic. Today, we're going to further the topic of finances. Today, we want to talk about some of the more granular or finer nuances to Alyssa and I's strategy to build a debt-free home. These may not work for everybody, but for the right people, maybe it'll make a light bulb go off and you'll find something that's gold. An analogy about gold really quick. You have to move mountains of dirt often to find small amounts of gold. So forgive me, most of this video you might not find valuable, but you might find one thing that makes you go, ah, I needed that. For Alyssa and I, building a home isn't just a place of shelter. We don't need shelter. As we touched on in video number 1, we're good. We're protected. We have everything we need. So part of building a home for us as it pertains to finances is a long-term strategy. Alyssa and I talk quite a bit about building wealth. That doesn't mean being rich. There's a difference. Wealth means being able to pass something on to future generations. And Alyssa and I do want to start a family. And so we're trying to think as far ahead as we can. Not too far, but we don't want to just think about today, this year, and the next 5 years. We want to try to think down the road. That's part of why we came on this journey, was to begin developing wealth. Where we came from, we didn't own hardly anything. Although I do have quite a few assets. I owned a business. I do have some real estate. It's really hard to own. And part of that's because mortgages, rent, credit prevent you from owning your things. And we're passionate about ownership. We really believe strongly in just owning it. And a lot of the world today doesn't have that privilege, but it is possible, but it's not easy. Part of what we're doing when we're building a home isn't just creating shelter, it's creating wealth for our future family. The reason we mention this is because there's a lot of other types of buildings that you can create that create shelter, and probably could create shelter cheaper, especially the building techniques that use a lot of refuse or like used tires or sandbags, things like that. They definitely provide the essential functions of a home. But we're not confident. We're not confident that those will provide a lot of residual value. Let me say this a different way. We're trying to build an asset. We're not just building a home. Why does any of that matter? Well, we don't know that this is our forever home. Alyssa and I are pretty young. We've got a lot of aspirations. We love this area. We don't want to leave, but we don't know what life holds for us. We don't know where we might end up or, what might happen through the course of the next 20, 30, 40 years. So we're trying to build a home that we feel like would have a pretty wide appeal if the day ever came that we'd have to sell it. You never know how that rocky road of finances and economies and things can go. And we want to make sure that the home that we build is something that we could leverage its equity. I never would encourage somebody without careful thought to do this, but there are times in life where some opportunity might come your way and you want to capitalize on it and you need a little bit of money to do that, and you can pull equity out of a home and jump on those opportunities. The other option is sometimes tragedy happens. We never want that to happen, but you kind of have to think ahead because we never know what life will bring. We want to be able to, leverage the equity in our home if something were to happen, like a medical emergency or something. And so we want to make sure that a bank would look attractively at our property and say, we'll give you a loan. We don't ever want one of those necessarily, but we don't want to close that door too soon. So part of Alyssa and I's strategy to help reduce the cost, the money cost of the project, is to build and leverage community. Part of the reason we moved to the location that we did is because there's a strong community. It's still here. It's not immune to the world, but a lot of people here care about their neighbors. In fact, it's very rare for somebody to live next door to someone and not know who they are, which is pretty common in a lot of parts of this country. Because of that, we tend to have a lot of opportunities to help them, and they help us. If you've watched our snowplow video, you understand more what we mean when we say community. The snowplow that we had actually went to a different family, and as a consequence of doing so, that plow has helped not just 5, but 6 families. Does this mean that Alyssa and I are just selfish and that we show up here and expect the whole community to just run around and rally and help us? No. In fact, what we've been doing for the last year and a half is the exact opposite. We've been trying to help the community. We've tried to be an asset. We've tried to be supportive and helpful where we can. We don't have a lot to share, but we've tried to be very generous people, and we feel like that's really what it means to be a part of a community. We feel like opportunities like this, building a home, is not something that you run into every single day as it pertains to a community. It's kind of not true, because around here it's actually pretty common for the community to help people build a home. In fact, there are large communities where people build so nobody has a mortgage. Isn't that an amazing thing? So we want to find a way to open this project up to the community so that people can help. We feel like it's rewarding for everybody. If somebody needed help building their home, I think Alyssa and I, we'd be right there if we could. We feel like if more people opened the door of opportunity, they would find that a lot of people are very willing to help. There's so much knowledge in this world, especially with the old timers, if you will, the experienced folks. The vastness of their knowledge and experience is just an untapped reservoir. And by opening the door up to allow people to help us, we're benefiting from all of that. In fact, we feel like that's one of the most underutilized things that's available to people if they just ask. But so many people are just, they're time constrained, especially when it comes to building a house. I mean, people want it now, or need it now. And they don't have time to leverage these things. So community can be a really powerful force in building a debt-free home. It just has to be used correctly. Building on that point of community, I want to jump to the next part of our strategy, and that is YouTube, you folks. We actually built this YouTube channel and our blog as part of our strategy. We expect a lot of the help that we are going to get is probably going to come from friends, family, and neighbors, somewhat regionally. What we didn't realize is that there's such a massive community out there of folks like yourself who have an interest or a passion in, off-grid or sustainable living or homesteading or building debt-free. Our eyes have been opened, I'll say that. And we have already been the benefactors of you folks, your generosity, the amount of information, tips, support, loyalty, kind words, things, messages at the right time when we needed them. We have built this YouTube channel to create community. We don't feel like this is a one-way street. We try to share what we know, we try to share what we experience, but we definitely feel a lot of that coming back to us in support. And a lot of the people who provide support don't always comment. We see you, we hear you, we read your emails. We do everything we can to read every single message, even the ones that are a little raw. They're a little raw. We read those too. So what we've learned is that the community is much larger than our location here. But what we're trying to say is that there's tremendous value in sharing your story. You'll find that there are a lot of people out there who share your passion, and we have benefited greatly. Our audience, our friends have been very generous to us. We've received emails that are borderline novels, and at first it's kind of like, ugh. But when we take the time to sit down and read those carefully, we often find small gems in there. It's hard because there's a lot of criticism that comes with it, which is tough, but you kind of have to have some thick skin if you're going to share your life on the internet. There's also been a lot of benevolence. Many of you folks have asked, how can we help you? And I mean, I never saw that coming from the internet. We all perceive that it's kind of black hole and everybody's selfish, but that's not true at all. A lot of you folks out there are very kind and generous people whom we would have never met had we not done all this work to document our journey. I'm guessing this is not at all what you thought you'd find in a video series on building a debt-free home, but hopefully you can see how powerful it can be. Another reason that we built YouTube is because it puts us in contact with a lot of different companies whose products we need to complete this project. We're not sure how that's going to work itself out, but we have their attention, and we do have people who contact us who offer us products, 99.9% of which we politely decline because they don't add any value to this journey. But the reality is that a journey like this is very product heavy, and unless you know something we don't know, we'd love to know. But the reality is every single day we rely a lot on tools and products, and we need those. And so building this YouTube channel, building our blog has helped us to get the attention of these companies. It's part of our strategy to help us to fund and provide the necessary resources and materials for this project. Are we encouraging everybody to go out and start a YouTube channel so that you can get free products? No. I can tell you right now, it's not that glamorous. A lot of people have a really twisted idea about what it means to be a YouTuber. It's a tremendous amount of work. That's what it is. And a lot of ungrateful jerks trying to shove their useless products down your throat because they think they're entitled to put their junk on your channel. We greatly appreciate our audience, and we would never share a product or a tool with our audience that we don't personally use or appreciate or see the value in. We're not bashful. We don't want to hide the fact that products are useful to this life because they are. You're going to need them. And so that's part of why YouTube is beneficial to our financial strategy, because it gives us a little bit of leverage with companies who might be interested in supporting our project and then simultaneously having their products shared with our audience. We feel like it's a win-win-win. We benefit because a portion or some of the products in our journey will be provided to us either at no cost or at a reduced cost, something like that. The company benefits because they get to have their product demonstrated in a very organic way. People get to see it in use. We're using their product, and we can tell you whether it's junk or not. And then our audience, we feel like you folks benefit because you get to see these products from these companies that you may or may not have ever heard of, and you get to see them in action, so you can decide whether it's a good fit for you or not. And that kind of takes me to the next point, which is the value of documenting your journey. We're not necessarily encouraging everybody to go get a camera and start documenting your off-grid homestead. In fact, a lot of people don't do that, who could share tremendous amounts of knowledge because they'd really rather just keep it private. And there's certainly something to be said for that. But the value of documenting your journey is that you're taking something that you could only be benefiting from, and you're giving it to other people so they also are allowed to benefit from your experiences. As Alyssa and I do all the work to document this journey, we're actually building an asset. We're building this kind of repository of videos that other people can benefit from. And the nice thing about that is, as a course of doing what we're doing, we're building an asset, and that asset has the potential to pay us. And that's part of our financial strategy, is that by documenting this, which is an immense project, and we wish we could do more, but we haven't figured out a way yet. For those folks out there who run a camera, you understand how difficult this stuff is. There's a lot of value in documenting this, because how many times are you going to do this in your life? Maybe 1, 2, maybe 3? I want to point out that this video, again, is about money. There's actually more value in documenting this for non-monetary reasons. Alyssa and I benefit immensely by watching our own videos because we see where we've come from. So that's a different topic. The next component of our financial strategy is the style of construction. We know there's a lot of unconventional or fringe building methods out there that allow you to use non-traditional materials, which can be found at a very low cost or no cost. We agree with that. Over using traditional or conventional building materials, which can only be purchased for money at a building supply store and cost a lot of money, and if you need more, you have to go get more from them. So the point is, you're not self-reliant. So we've chosen to go with a building style or a construction style that allows us to rely on our own tools and our own materials and our own skills, and that is timber framing. Right now, that's something that we feel passionate about. It's not just about saving money, it's about building a home that we want to live in, and we like the look and the feel of timber framing, but it also makes sense from a materials and cost perspective. I wanted to make one more comment about why we chose to go with a timber frame, and it relates to community. The timber framing community is strong, and there's been a resurgence of interest in this traditional building method. And because of that, there are a lot of workshops and resources available, and there's a lot of general interest in this building style. And that can be really powerful when you're trying to build debt-free. Traditional building opportunities are kind of rare. Workshops aren't as common. They are out there. But what you'll find in the timber framing community is that there are workshops that are readily available. There's an investment and there's a time commitment, but it's one of the few building techniques where there's this really strong community around it of people who are just passionate about passing on the trade, the tools, the elegance, the design, all those things. The next part of the financial strategy is permits. We moved to an area in the county that does not require building permits. And I don't want to get too in depth with this, but I just want to state that's a building permit, not a plumbing permit, not an electrical permit, and not a septic permit. It's a building permit. It's different. These different permits are administered by different agencies. So I'm not saying that we're required to get a plumbing or electrical permit, but those are not administered by the county, they're administered by the state. And it's a whole different conversation. But where we came from, which is kind of a bad example, but in that area, a building permit process could run you upwards of $50,000. That's not the only problem. They also restrict you in time. You have deadlines that you must meet. And if you don't meet those deadlines, you have to reapply for a permit. As you can see, and as most of you folks are probably already aware, permitting can just drain your bank account. In a lot of areas, you're not allowed to do owner builds. You're required to use contractors. It's not an invitation to just build a junk heap. Rather, it's just one less cost that we have to incur. And it gives us a lot more discretion in how we build, since there's no restrictions on building types. It's still a good idea, though, to look at codes in your area. There are some areas around us that do have building codes, and they can be very helpful in deciding how to engineer the building, etc. For example, for snow loads, which is a major factor for us. As far as the overall strategy with the house, as most people experience, we plan on building over time. And that's my next point, is that we don't plan on building everything today. Our goal is to kind of go in leaps. Especially this upcoming leap, which is basically to get the foundation, the garage, the frame, and get everything dried in. That's a really big jump. But at that point, you can kind of slow back down. I know it sounds romantic, and everybody's given us a lot of tips on don't go too fast, but don't go too slow, because everybody's experience is a little bit different. But this is one of those key components to building debt-free, is not having it all today. So we want a beautiful kitchen and a beautiful bathroom with beautiful windows. We may end up with a shell. It will probably stay in our RV for probably another couple of years, maybe a little bit less, as we can get some of the living areas suitable. I'll tell you what, though, we learned a lesson. We remodeled a home before we moved here. We were living in the home as we were remodeling it, and what a nightmare. That was horrible. We were having to put drop cloths on everything. All of our computers were covered in dust and paint. We had to mask the kitchen. It was terrible. So it's ideal right now, but we're hoping we can hold off and try to get some of the living areas completed before we move in. That does it for this video. Pretty much covers all the topics that I had on financial planning and the money side of this building project. If you have questions or comments, please leave them below, message us on the blog, or hit us with a message on Facebook. We'll try to include answers to the broader questions in our future videos, and we'll see you next time.